Hi, I'm Brandon Card, CEO and founder at Terzo. Terzo is an enterprise AI financial intelligence platform. We help large enterprises optimize all of their supplier spend, supplier contracts, and improve financial performance. Very happy to be here today with Ambassador General Doug Lute, who has recently joined our board. I'm very excited about this opportunity, Doug.
Well, thanks, Brandon, and thanks for welcoming me to the Terzo team. I come from a very different background, but we have intersection. My background is 35 years as a military officer in the Army, retired as a 3-star general. My last assignment was in the White House under first President Bush and then President Obama, so I spent 6 years in the White House. And then either to get rid of me or to reward me, Obama appointed me as his ambassador to NATO for his second 4-year term. So from 2013 to 2017, I was at NATO headquarters as the U.S. ambassador. Since leaving the government in 2017, I'm now a key player here at Barber, Griffin & Rogers, one of the premier consulting lobbying firms in Washington. And that's what brings us together. I've learned about Terzo and where you want to take the company. I think I have a basic understanding of what Terzo does, but can you just put it in plain English? Put it in sort of Terzo 101 language. What is it that Terzo actually does for a customer?
We built AI to read all of these contracts, invoices, purchase orders that are in a PDF document that are static in people's emails and also even in OneDrive folders. We read all of that important financial data and the commercial data and the legal data inside these documents to show companies where all their money is going. Because I think the thing people overlook is that all the money you commit to spending are in a PDF document. And all these PDF documents are literally in the filing cabinet. So there's no centralization, there's no visibility into this key data. And people have been investing hundreds of millions of dollars into ERP systems like SAP and Oracle. That's the accounting system. That shows the transactions that basically happen out of the bank account.
Right.
But how do you know if that transaction was actually accurate? The transaction that is supposed to happen is actually in the contract. If I'm gonna spend $1 million with a vendor, that is signed in a contract agreement. Now, if $2 million goes out of the bank account, how do I know, right, that discrepancy? That's the problem our customers have.
And I suppose that this data, it's not only physically located in different compartments inside an organization, it's also not formatted so that one side can talk to the other. So how does Terzo account for that?
And the other challenge is too, right, for years before this whole SaaS boom and AI boom, the legal teams would basically hoard all this contract data in their own filing cabinets or in their own systems behind the firewall, and finance wouldn't even have access to it. So that's actually one of the biggest problems, right, is that when you say the word contract, everyone's like, well, that's a legal thing. And we know that's a financial thing, right? Terzo knows contracts are financial assets, but the financial leaders, the CFO, all those folks that are responsible for budgets and forecasting never had access because the legal team is like, no, these are my contracts. One of the things that Terzo does for CFOs and for procurement leaders who are spending all the money, we bring all the historical data, all the money you've spent for the last 5 to 10 years, all that accounting data, together with all the contract data. A lot of contracts may be 10 years out in the future. So we bring you the historical view, and we also bring you the future view. So then you can plan, you can make decisions smarter, and you can optimize a lot of these commitments we've made. And these aren't surprises, right? And how many times in my career have I got yelled at by a CFO, even when I was working at Microsoft, he had no idea they were getting hit with a $36 million bill. And I said, what do you mean? Your team signed this contract last year. And it says in there, year 2 payments, $36 million in the contract. He never saw the contract. Things like that, right? You make all these commitments in these documents, you negotiate so strongly, and then a year later, when you have the time to make the payment, you have no visibility.
I understand the basics of what Terzo delivers, but why is Terzo unique? What makes Terzo special?
The difference with Terzo is that we have what we call hybrid intelligence because we built our own AI, but we also have humans in the loop that actually validate the data to get to 99% accuracy. And that is the difference with Terzo, is our accuracy, because we're dealing with financial data. We can't afford to be 97% accurate or even 95% accurate because then decisions can't be made. We have intellectual property and how the humans in the loop work with the software to get to 99% accuracy for our customers. We do that work on their behalf. So our customers don't have to spend all this time. Is this data right? Did we miss a field here? We do all that for them as a service. And we were the first company in the space to do this AI as a service. We're the only player in the world that has that unique combination of software and services. Even the best systems like Claude, right, or ChatGPT, if you upload one contract that's $1 million, right, and then you upload, there's an invoice for that contract that's $1 million, and then there's a purchase order for that invoice that's $1 million. That overall is actually a $1 million transaction because you have the contract, then the invoice and the purchase order is mapping to the contract. So it's actually a $1 million contract. If you put those 3 documents into a normal AI, they'll tell you that's a $3 million transaction, right? Which is pretty simple, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million. Terzo's expertise is actually contextualizing that and letting people know this invoice is actually mapped to this contract record, this purchase order is actually mapped to this invoice. We contextualize all of that, which is also a huge differentiation for us. So our customers don't think it's a $3 million bill. They know it's a $1 million bill, right? Which is a huge difference.
So you have people in the loop who actually proof your own work.
We do, 3 different offices.
You audit the audit.
That's right. So around the clock, we are reviewing our AI's work, training the AI, getting the accuracy 99%. We literally do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because we operate in 3 different locations. That is the service that our customers needed because they don't have the people to do all this data work in-house. They want to offload it to a partner like Terzo. So we provide that level of accuracy and data and trust, and we provide an SLA.
The other thing, it strikes me that human in the loop, the service part of your delivery, right, is also the element where trust is built.
And for example, we work with the largest airline in the world. We have a team that's just dedicated to the airline. They are subject matter experts in understanding their specific problems. We call them pods. We build a pod for our customer to make sure that they just focus on that customer and they become experts and they know that customer intimately throughout the life of the contract. So it's not just hey, we throw a services team together. We throw a specialized services team that we specifically hired for the customer.
What kind of continuity do you have within the pods?
These roles are, roles where typically people aren't going to stay for 5 years, but we've seen on the average people staying for 2 years in these roles, right? And a lot of time these are data analysts, these may be paralegals, these may be accountants. These are people that have highly analytical backgrounds, right? People that are really good with data.
Sure.
But yeah, typically we've been running this program now. We started this whole pod model and this whole AI push in the end of 2022. If you're on the pod, hopefully you can then lead the team of 4 or 5 and then be a manager on the pod.
Right.
And that's how we're trying to grow the organization.
And all the time, the members of your team are forming relationships with the customer, with the client.
Absolutely.
Right?
I'm proud to say, right, one thing that's different about us too, we have badges to our clients' offices. We had to do background checks so we could get badges to the client's office.
That's the bureaucratic symbol of trust.
That's right, right?
Because
we were in there sitting there at the desk with them.
You don't get in the front door.
No, we don't. That's one thing we're proud of because we want people to know we're not just a software company. We're a trusted partner that is going to come in the trenches with you. You can't get anything done in life that's significant without a team effort. So we work with these customers in person, wherever they need us to go. I happen to fly all over the world, as I was telling you, because these customers are everywhere. If they need us in Dubai, we'll be in Dubai. If they need us in London, we'll be in London. If they need us in San Francisco, we'll be in San Francisco. That's the level of service we want to provide to our customers. So we're very different than just a nice AI model. We are people that you can count on, people you can call. And
people you know.
People you know. That's still important to our customers. They want people that they can count on. They want to talk to a person still. Right? And that's what we've continued to see. And I don't think that's going to change for the long term.
So how do you navigate this question of data security?
We thought about this before we had our first customer, Doug, because we knew we were going into the enterprise. And we knew we were going to serve financial services. We knew we were going to serve healthcare. The way we architected Terzo early on was we built all of our AI in Microsoft Azure. The environments that almost all these government and companies are already running. Okay. We also have a multi-cloud environment with AWS, which is a very, they're the biggest player in the space too. But between Microsoft and AWS, we run cloud systems. We had to get SOC 1, SOC 2 certification early on, invested in that early on to show customers, hey, we take security operations very seriously. AI, ISO certification, which we went and got approved for and got a certification as 42001 last year. Our engineering and infrastructure team is constantly focused on this, and we've hired some really great leaders who have done this for some of the biggest companies in the world, right? Our engineering leaders right now came over from Coinbase. They were protecting, $100 billion of Bitcoin.
Well, it sounds like in Terzo, part of the culture, part of the company culture is this sort of ingrained appreciation for, or requirement. for security.
Requirement. Hiring engineers that have, even the engineers that are, standard, developers, if you will, a lot of them have security backgrounds. A lot of them have information security backgrounds and have done things and worked at, agencies like Booz and served the government in the past. So we always hire people that have a little bit of that historical experience with security as well. And, from a tactical perspective, we built our application so we can run in a private cloud. So if the U.S. government's like, hey, we want to ship this environment to our Azure GCC high environment, Terzo can package up the solution and ship it to that environment, and they control the keys. So that's one thing that I know, being a technologist, is that security teams always want to know who has the encryption keys, right? So we're giving our customers the flexibility to say, hey, this is your data, even though it's Terzo software, you can control the keys to your data. So those are the type of precautions we take and the type of steps we take to provide security for people. And of course, in the cyber world, everyone is at risk, but we're constantly investing, constantly training, constantly keeping up with the latest certifications to show people that, hey, this is a top priority for us. And honestly, it's even more of a priority than building, innovation and advancing our software platform, because we know that if you do cybersecurity really well and you protect the data, then, you're going to have a chance to be around for a long time.
As we at BGR have learned more about what Terzo has done in the private sector, in the commercial world, with some of your most prominent current customers, it has occurred to us that this doesn't feel at all like what's happening inside the U.S. government bureaucracy today. So we think there's a big opportunity for Terzo to bring the kind of improved efficiency and improved accountability, which you present essentially by way of your technology to corporate leadership, right? You're revealing to corporate leaders something about their own internal organization that they probably don't currently appreciate.
That's right. Yeah.
That same...
We're highlighting all the problems.
You are, but you're doing it on a sort of relationship basis. You're enabling those corporate leaders, the C-suite, to take more informed, more targeted decisions that they probably weren't even aware were in front of them.
Exactly.
Before you come onto the scene. So that same need for efficiency and accountability is prominent in the U.S. government as well.
We know, obviously, the big corporations we're working with, there's so much complexity, operating in many countries, operating in many currencies, many different languages. Very hard to govern these massive organizations. A lot of our customers have over 100,000 employees. U.S. government is, similar size, obviously probably similar complexity, but historically they haven't had a ton of accountability. What do you think has changed recently here in Washington, or just, on the state and local level, where people want to be more efficient, they want to be more accountable? What do you think is driving that behavioral change overall?
The Washington drive reflects the demands of the country at large for increased delivery on the promises of governance and increased accountability on governmental leaders. I think that, frankly, the divided politics today in the United States reflect that we have different views on how to get to that accountability. But the common thread is Americans expect their governments to work. And Americans expect them to work efficiently and to hold government officials accountable. And so you see things in the budget cycle, for example. So the U.S. Congress has just demanded that all the accounts in the Pentagon be able to pass an audit
For the first time.
By 2028.
And a $1.5 trillion budget.
And a $1.5 trillion budget.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's practical in terms of an expectation.
And 2028 was the goal, right?
2028 is the goal.
So
and today, inside the Pentagon, there's only one of the 5 services that has passed an audit, the Marine Corps.
How do you think a company like Terzo can come in and impact the DOW and really not just come in at a point of time like Doge, right? With all due respect, not just come in and do a static, episodic audit on what's been happening, but ongoing.
Well, one of the challenges that the Pentagon faces is that while it's seeking a $1.5 trillion budget, it is also in the midst of a fundamental transformation on how wars are conducted. I mean, we see this in 2 great sort of laboratories, right? One is the war in Iran, most recently on the headlines, obviously, but also the war in Ukraine. And we see the rise of high-tech systems replacing legacy systems. The most perhaps iconic example is that Ukraine, without a navy, has defeated, by way of autonomous ships, autonomous maritime vehicles, the Russian Black Sea Fleet. This transformation is happening on the ground in Ukraine, and it's happening on the ground now.
New suppliers, I would assume, too, are coming in all the time. right?
Exactly.
Like Andurils of the world and all these new tech
Exactly.
companies are coming in and serving the
question.
defense
No question.
community, right?
And what the Ukrainians in particular have proven is that the side that adapts most efficiently, the side that adapts most agilely, will have a battlefield advantage.
Yep.
Well, what I just described is not the Pentagon procurement system. And it's not the way the Pentagon has survived and even mostly flourished for decades. And so the bureaucracies that have been built up around Pentagon procurement, how capabilities are contracted, how they're paid for, how they're invoiced.
Would you say that this process has been the same for the last 10 to 20 years? Or when do you think it's changed?
No,
Did that internet era? Or
Not 10 or 20, 50 or 60.
50 years. Even with the dot-com bubble,
Think
things
World, War,
changed.
think World War II.
Wow.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'm sure you go into corporate customers today and you find that there are different databases.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you go into the Pentagon, those databases will be metal file cabinets. But the Pentagon, I would argue,
It's all file and cabinet.
is a generation.
Physical paper.
It's a generation
Xerox
behind the
printed out
corporate
paper.
world.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I think that Terzo's opportunity, in particular with the Pentagon, but look, the Pentagon's just the tip of the bureaucratic iceberg.
I mean, FDA, HHS, Department of Transportation.
Absolutely.
I've even heard, many friends and investors of mine have messaged me about, hey, the VA. I think this is a huge opportunity to help these government agencies and to help a lot of these people do more strategic work, be more efficient, but also be working on things that are much more important versus searching for data all day or manually reviewing contracts or searching in your inbox all day for different data.
You can't tee up for them the kind of credible, sensible decisions where they can actually make a difference.
Yep.
Because they're still searching for the data.
But I have to ask you a question because I've only been alive for so long. I've seen the polarization in politics be drastic during my lifetime, especially, the last 10 years or so. Has it always been like that?
I think on both sides of the political aisle, both Republicans and Democrats, there's a groundswell of opinion now and a demand signal for accountability. And I think the political swings will shift towards the party which can actually deliver efficiency and
The citizens
accountability.
are expecting.
That's what they're demanding.
They're demanding. Yeah.
Right?
Rightfully so. I mean, we pay a lot of tax.
And in a way, Brandon, that's kind of the American way. One of the things that's propelled that growth over that 250 years has been America's sense of efficiency. We expect delivery, we expect results, and we'll hold elected officials accountable.
Yep.
So I think we want to get back to those basics. That's exactly what Terzo promised.
100%. And what I think, obviously, I'm, very proud to be born in America. Proud of, my family's been here a long time. When I grew up, though, as a young guy, young athlete, young student, I always thought of America having strong leadership. And I always thought, well, maybe we're the world's power because we have the best leaders. That's always what I thought as a young kid, right? That's why we're always winning. That's why we're more efficient. That's why we're faster. That's why we build better products. Now I think that just in general, the world, leadership is a little bit lacking, in my opinion, right, across the world. And I think that that's a huge problem.
It may also be a reflection of the bureaucracies and the governmental structures that themselves are not efficient and are not held accountable. As American citizens outside Washington look at how their government is working for them and view that the government is coming up short, I think that really powers much of the sort of political divide, the political angst in the country today. So we can get back to this.
Yeah.
It has to do with leadership,
It does.
but it also has to do with performance and delivery.
I want to talk about, how you're going to come on the board at Terzo and work with us. And the reason why that was so important for me is because of your diverse background in really high complexity environments, big bureaucratic environments, as you said, operating with a lot of different teams, cross-functional teams, and bringing that leadership to your career for many, many years. That's an area that I personally think is a huge need at Terzo as we grow the company, as we hire more people, as we raise more capital, as we expand into new regions. I'm not so much worried about the tech, to be honest with you. I always tell investors, they say, well, where do you guys think this is? Are you in the fifth inning of a 9-inning baseball game? I said, honestly, I think we're in the first inning of a 9-inning baseball game. That's how early I believe it is. I've been waiting for this for a long time, right? Because when I built the company, I thought AI was going to take off in 2020. Here we are in 26. It seems like now as things are getting really hot, mainstream, the team believes in our mission, and it's so important, right? And honestly, even when we got started, we knew the Fortune 500 was going to be our target, but we also knew the government is going to be and should be our number one customer because they have more spend, more problems, more pain, less systems, more bureaucracy.
So with your current commercial clients, what's the scale of this sort of improved efficiency?
When we talk about efficiency, or there's like two levers, right? We talk about obviously hard dollar savings,
Right.
which is what every CFO cares about, right? Actually real money.
Of course.
And the productivity and the time savings is, it's a soft savings, but it's also important, right? So when we think about the hard dollar savings, we go into a Fortune 500 company, on average, we're seeing 3 to 5% of their annual spend, which is typically well over $1 billion.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
This 3 to 5% is just straight waste and leakage, which means no one even knows these services are being paid for. And then when you look at, other things like renewal governance and being able to renegotiate contracts,
Decisions.
that's another 5%. So you're talking about 10%.
And if that's the case in Fortune
500.
500 companies, I mean, it's staggering to imagine the impact you could have in the federal government.
We're talking about billions of dollars that are perceived to be being wasted. What do you think that a lot of people come into Washington without experience like me? What do you think they underestimate, or what do you think that they don't really plan for when they get into Washington? Because I'm ready for these surprises, but I'm just curious what you're going to say here.
I think many potential clients who come to BGR view the U.S. government in particular as a black box. That is, they don't really understand how it's wired. They don't understand the organizational structures. They don't understand the connections between the career bureaucratic structures in these agencies and the political appointees who sit above them.
So they don't understand what's inside that box, that organizational box. So one of the things that BGR does, largely by bringing people who have had experience in these organizations into BGR as a consulting lobbying firm, one of the things we do is sort of, not unlike Terzo, we're a bridge. We're a bridge between people who don't understand the U.S. government, but are interested in access, and the government agencies in question, much like you're a bridge inside an organization between one arm and the other. What you need is a bureaucratic translator, and we can help you with that.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. That's something we're definitely going to need, right? We've done a good job with that in the private sector, but they speak a whole different language. Thank you so much. Not at all. Thank you so much for being here.